It's lovely to be here with beloved mentors and friends and my dearest family ones. CMBC developed my curiosity, and everything follows from that. As I've been mulling which words to share this evening, two concepts which have been helpful to me through the last decades have surfaced again and again. The first concept comes from the world of ecology and biology, so apologies to the scientists among us. I want to talk about ecotones, and my friends here have already been talking about this. Ecology, tonus, tension. An ecotone is the place where the boundaries of two different ecosystems or biomes meet. So for instance, between a forest or a marshland and a river, there's a special place ecologically where the two biomes blend. You may be familiar with the ecotone of the foothills in southern Alberta, or the ecotone north of Saskatoon between the parkland and the boreal forest. Ecotones tend to be more diverse and biologically productive than either biome alone. Because the ecotone has access to both biomes, there's a greater genetic diversity, and the ecotone serves as a bridge of genetic flow from one population to another. In other words, an ecotone is a fantastic place. It's a place of potential. It is also a place of tension. And as we know, places of tension and conflict can be places of nourishing opportunity, and they can also be places where things die, just to keep us from romanticizing. One of my early institutional experiences with a metaphorical ecotone was here, as a member of the board of CMBC when the federated colleges came together, and then again in the early CMU years. I learned much from Gerald Gerbrandt and others about navigating among separate identities in order to collect a healthy shared vision. And I have used those teachings often in my various MCC roles. MCC itself is a metaphorical ecotone, holding within itself multiple identities, denominational, generational, political, philosophical, many others, each vying for space and voice and influence. And MCC places itself into borderland experiences, here and around the world, interacting between faiths and cultures and languages and cuisines. These are rich, rich spaces, which for me are often surprising, often exhausting, and always intriguing. And these kinds of spaces require specific skills, like humility and courage, kind listening and gentle love, as Donna has reminded us. The ability to not turn away from pain, the ability to live with discomfort and tension long enough to learn the lessons of the context. I will not live long enough to hone these skills to the degree I wish I could. One institutional ecotone that I've had the privilege of participating in was between MCC in Saskatchewan and Bethany College, and Randy was part of that story. Beginning in the 2000s until Bethany's closure. For me, this was a deeply meaningful collaboration between Bethany faculty and MCC staff in the service of student experiential learning and leadership development. I learned much from MB colleagues and students at Bethany College. They gave me strong gifts of clarifying our efforts as disciples of Jesus, gifts of care and gifts of prayer. I learned how to pray very differently after I worked at Bethany College. It was a lovely gift. And I gained dear, dear friends such as Randy and Darlene. The last ecotone space I want to hold up is this space, and it's been named here several times rightly. I want to hold up the space we have all been invited to participate in, both personally and professionally, and that is the space between settler and Indigenous communities with a view toward reconciliation. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission gave us teachings that shattered our previous selves, and now we are reconstructing ourselves and our institutions. This is hard and beautiful and deeply meaningful work. We are weeding out our privileged invasive species selves and offering our better selves into genuine, gracious, and healthy relationships. And I want to acknowledge the bundle that was shared today with Sandy Soto Spiritual Center. That's a beautiful thing. And now I want to turn and circle around a teaching from Elise Boulding, who was a sociologist, a Quaker, a longtime peace educator. I might suggest that she's the mother of the modern peace movement. Elise suggests that our imaginations are essential to bringing healthy change in our world, and that our imagining should be done within what she calls the 200-year present. Try this. Think about when you were a child. Who was the oldest person who was important to you? And now, think about the very youngest person who is important to you today. If the youngest person you're thinking about lives to a healthy old age, the span between the birth of your oldest person and the death of your youngest person will probably come out to about 200 years. For instance, when I was a child, my important old person was my great-grandmother, Helena Bueller Peters Hebert, who was born in 1891 here in southern Manitoba. Today, my important littlest person is 5-month-old Isabel Martins Espelada, who, if she lives as long as my great-grandmother, will be 97 in 2116. From 1891 to 2116 is 225 years. In this time frame are the hands that held me and the hands that I will hold. If I think about the enormous impact that my great-grandmother had and continues to have on my life, I gain a greater appreciation for the impact that I can have on Isabel and many others. Poet Rainer Maria Rilke said it like this: "To be here is immense." This idea of the 200-year present has helped me to regularly lift my eyes from my daily tasks and pay attention to broader themes and movements. Within the 200-year present, there's always something to do, but not always the same thing. In some seasons, our tasks are more active or more reflective, sometimes painful and sometimes beautiful, or both. Some seasons require repentance and restitution, forgiveness and mercy. Some seasons make us angry, and we are challenged to use our anger well. Some seasons are for service, and some are for being served. I've been working in one institution long enough to have another generation come along beside me and critique much of the work I've done. This is incredibly humbling and hopeful. Irritating, actually, and beautiful. And it brings to mind the words of John O'Donohue, who wrote in his poem titled "To Leaders," May you be hospitable to criticism. Indeed. We'd like to think that the 200-year present will hold a linear development of our wisdom, but we know very clearly that there is no guarantee of this, and thus we have multitudes of youth taking us to task on the climate crisis, among other things. I came of age as the More with Less cookbook, authored by Doris Jansen Longacre, was proliferating in Mennonite communities and beyond. When I was a student at CMBC, I learned to cook and eat on an almost non-existent budget, thanks to Doris and the availability of lentils. Doris has been one of my mentors in my 200-year present. She encouraged us as cooks and eaters, that is all of us, to be theologians and ethicists. And I leave you with 3 teachings from Doris that have been and continue to be valuable to me as I attempt to live faithfully in ecotone-like spaces with a 200-year present imagination. First, we always need prophets. We don't like them, but we always need them to push us out of our comfortable patterns and to question our well-worn justifications. We must be willing to look at ourselves and humbly understand our foolishness. We should welcome the voices of Greta Thunberg and Autumn Peltier. The second Doris teaching: let's keep our focus on what we love. God, neighbor, world. Sometimes we become a bit shrill with each other in our zest to act, and we start to sound like what we've been attempting to resist. Doris reminded us to act out of joy, to act out of love. And the third Doris teaching: we need to make changes together. We need each other. Oh my goodness. With all our creative strengths and painful weaknesses, we need each other for courage and for accountability. I am deeply grateful for CMU and its predecessor colleges. I have continued to learn from this community through faculty friends, and especially again in this last decade, as our children have also been shaped and educated in this place. May God keep us and be gracious with us all. Thank you.